Hey YouTube, this is Rasmussen Park Fan 62. This wasn't a video I was gonna do, but with how much hate is going around right now, I thought I would do this. Now, if any of you guys saw SmackDown last night, it is Saturday, April the 4th at around 3:30. Now, how is that important? Well, it is because we are currently 3 weeks out from Mania. Well, 2 weeks out, actually. And SmackDown has been the show to not exactly miss, but not watch right then and there. And it is sad because SmackDown used to be a great show, but something has changed in it to where it's just kind of like, who cares type thing. And it's a shame because, you know, SmackDown used to be great. And it's just, ever since TKO has taken over WWE, all they care about is making as much money as they can. And before anybody gets on me saying, oh, they are a business, so that's what they have to make, I realize that they are a publicly traded company. And so therefore they have to make as much money as they can, especially for the stock and shareholders. But it's just, the greed for this is becoming unbearable now. And it's just becoming something that, you know, is a lot of people are noticing. And there are points on SmackDown that make it a good show and very entertaining, such as R-Truth and Danhausen and stuff like that. But there are things in this as well where you can tell there are backstage people getting involved. As well as people who, you know, probably have a say. Somebody like Ari Emanuel or The Rock or anybody like that. Because there are things where you could tell where somebody had a say in what went on in the show. And it's becoming harder and harder to defend when you put stuff out like that. Now, on SmackDown, with especially WrestleMania, it's becoming harder and harder to get invested in because there's only several matches on the show compared to Raw, which has more than double. So it's one of those things where, unfortunately, you know, it's kind of like, why bother type thing. For example, you have Jade and Rhea Ripley for the women's championship. It's fine, but the main issue is you have, and I'm sorry for the language in this part, but you have them going, I'm that bitch. And that's what's mostly the last 3-4 weeks has been about. Was ever since the Elimination Chamber in late February has kind of aligned certain things. And unfortunately, that is one of them. What on paper, it is a great matchup because both are very muscular women. Both, are great athletes. But the main problem is that they're both ramble for about 5-10 minutes, and then at the end go, I'm that bitch. And that's about it. There's no, why should we be invested in this? Why should we be invested in you? I'm putting the certain things out of the way in it. But it's just kind of like one of those, why should we care about what happens here? And sadly, that's what's, under the new administration, it's all about is just, how much money can we get out of this deal? Now, I can't believe I'm going to say this phrase, but when Vince McMahon was in charge of WWE, that was the big thing he wanted, was to be invested in the story. Why should we care about this? And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, why should I care about this story? On Raw, you have Punk and Roman, who that has gotten extremely personal. Punk a couple of weeks ago talked about putting Roman next to his dead father. Getting the Usos involved and everything else. You have AJ Lee and Becky Lynch. And this is going back as far as WrestlePalooza last September. With this ongoing feud that should hopefully end in the next couple of weeks. You also have Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi. Now, the reason why I mentioned Brock and Oba is because Brock has been essentially the only champion or the only challenger to make Oba look foolish for a couple of weeks. And, that first time where Oba essentially dropped Brock Lesnar on his back, was kind of like a, oh, wow type moment because, up to then, no one has ever done that with Brock Lesnar. Now, there have been stars in the past who have taken Brock to his limit, such as, The Undertaker and all of that, but nobody that has essentially done that. And then you have the Usos with this rivalry, if you want to call it that, with the Vision. The thing with this is that was it a surprise the Vision beat the Usos? Yes. However, they are still down 2 men. They're down Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed won't even be back till, at the earliest, maybe SummerSlam. Maybe. And Braun could be back anytime. We just don't know. But it's stuff like this. And then you look at NXT. Now, while NXT is having their differences right now, they are at least making people interested, especially the women's division. So you have like Zarya and Sol Ruka, who used to be best friends and teammates, now bitter rivals. Then you have Tatum Paxley and Blake Monroe for the North American title. Then you have, stuff like that. And then with them bringing in more talent coming in. So you have a lot of these new ID people coming in, which will, with some of them who have already had time in NXT before. And so essentially the ID may be their way to get back onto NXT TV probably within the next 3-4 months. This is the type of stuff I'm talking about, because when you have NXT, which has proven to be, out of the 3 shows on TV, I'm not including Evolve in this because it is on a free app. And it's only I think an hour. NXT, now, while it does have its differences, has proven to be the better show. Raw is up there with being good. While Raw still has its moments of being bad, it's still doing pretty well. It's just SmackDown, ever since essentially a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, has not got to what it was. And it's a shame, because SmackDown used to be the show to watch. And there just needs to be a lot of changes happening in the back. We don't know if Road Dogg was the issue, but I'm probably certain he had a part of it, but he wasn't the full issue. There is something going on behind the scenes that is making it difficult right now. What, I'm not entirely sure. But it needs to change.